I think Jiizuké deserved his Rook of the Split. I mean, he outplayed Perks, he outplayed Caps, he outplayed, I mean, he just outplayed a lot of people. I don't think I'm really afraid to play against him because right now I'm kind of used to like teams play around mid, So I kind of like adapted my playstyle as well. So I think going against them, I was a bit scared before, but now that I know how to play against it, I think I'm not scared at all, and I'm pretty sure I will beat him in the end.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Royal Arena in Copenhagen, where Splyce and Vitality are tied in the third place decider at 1-1. Nisqy with some interesting words, especially since we'd been harping on him a lot in the beginning of the split. And he says, well, we acknowledge that as well. Other teams are playing so much around mid, so we feel we just have to play more around mid, or I know how to deal with that. And that's what we saw in game number 2.
Yeah, we definitely did. And we actually saw it in game 1 too, where they saved the counter pick for Nisqy. And he has shown great proficiency at understanding how to play these Taliyah matchups, because Cassiopeia is not supposed to necessarily win against Taliyah, but it's supposed to be a 50-50, and he wins the skill matchup.
And let's look at a couple of the important plays from that game outside of just in the mid lane, because the top lane dive that Vitality tried was a good idea, but what goes wrong, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, so the problem for me in this draft is that you have the Taliyah, and we have seen several times how good they are at just pushing the mid lane, rotating to sides. But in this specific draft from Vitality, I didn't really feel like they had a condition to play to any of the sides. And then you try to do plays like these where it might work, but Splyce had the counter ready, and then it ends up like this.
Yeah, it seems to be like a complete difference between game 1 and game 2, where in game 1 we talked about like basically the disability of Splyce to not play on any lanes, whereas game 2 basically showed that for Vitality. They didn't have anywhere to play around, they didn't have anyone to play around, so they tried to force pace, and then you saw Nisqy just take over completely.
Yeah, Nisqy completely took over and was better than his counterpart Jiizuké in this game. And in both games, if you put the kills and assists over 2 games together for 15 minutes, he looks a lot stronger, but I'm gonna say that because of game 2, that may have been tilted just
Slightly.
a little bit. So what does this mean for Vitality? Because the mid lane and that mid-jungle synergy is what got shut down so hard by Fnatic as well. So can they do anything against that?
Yeah, I mean, so I love that Splyce were challenging. We saw Xerxe with the first gang where he got the first spot in mid lane, and that was so crucial for the game, because when Cassiopeia gets ahead, this pick is so scary. And we saw Nisqy play to the edge, and he was not afraid of making the big plays. He was going left and right, killing people, and I really do admire that you have the guts to, when you get the lead, to push it.
Yeah, he tamed the Italian stallion at least for 1 game, and now when we look across to or over both first games, game 1 and 2, that would be, yes, shocks, into game 3. For me, it's really hard to see what will happen just because of the fact that, as you say, Vitality tried something which was a good plan but could go wrong. It did go wrong. In game 1, Splyce did very well in the bottom lane early, and then it got turned around on them, and it was really a coin flip both times, of which the winning team ended up running away with the game. So what is it going to come down to if both teams try to play towards the early game?
I do think that they basically both have to understand, hey, we had drafts that worked for us, and we have to repeat them. I think the amount of change that Vitality brought into the draft in game 2 was almost too much to handle, because they changed up the Olaf with the Trundle basically and banned the Kasing instead, which made them a lot more passive in the early game. And we've seen like in 2 games now that the early game is all that matters. So if you win it, you win the game. So I do expect Vitality to go back a bit, because I think they're going to end up on the same side. And Splyce to understand, hey, we actually are fine with the Cassiopeia into the Taliyah, and it's going to put a lot of pressure onto the Vitality.
But the Cassiopeia should never go over to Nisqy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so what I think will happen now is that you go back to what you did in the first game. You ban out the Casio, you don't ban the Kha'Zix, and then on the other hand, we have Splyce banning the Caitlyn, and then I think we'll have a more even game. And I think whoever's gonna get ahead in this game, I think is really gonna take over the series, because it seems like both teams have what it takes to win.
Are you guys adjusting your expectations? Because before the series, you were adamant that Vitality would have the upper hand, and if they were to throw, it would only be around Baron. Now you're singing a different tune.
No, honestly no, because I still think Vitality has what it takes to win the series. I just think the draft that they presented in the second game was not the draft that I expect from Vitality, and I didn't really feel like that it could showcase the strengths they have in the early game.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to adjust my expectations a bit. I do think that Splyce has a lot more tools now to play around the early game. Especially Nisqy showing up is so crucial, because we've been talking about Jiizuké taking over games 24/7, but there's a counterplay now, and that counterplay is Nisqy just picking whatever he wants to into Taliyah. So I do think that Splyce actually has a good shot at making this.
And what a playoff run so far from Nisqy. Like he was one of the guys that really showed up in the quarterfinal. We praised him a lot as like a carry that we didn't expect to show up. And in the semifinals, yeah, it's pretty funny. And in the semifinals, he actually went toe-to-toe with Perkz himself. So I think so far he's really showed up in the playoffs, and a lot of praise to him.
He went toe-to-toe with Perkz. Caps won't let us forget that either. We'll see what Nisqy can do in the next game. We'll soon find out if Splyce can pull out another win. First, let's check in with Love, who is joined by Fnatic's Broxa.
Thank you very much, Xerxe. I'm here with Broxa. You've been watching the game, obviously. What do you think about Splyce bouncing back in Game 2?
I think it was really great to see Splyce bouncing back, especially the way they did it with like them getting the mid jungle edge early and Nisqy just completely popping off and killing everyone. Like, it was really great to see.
Yeah, talking about Nisqy, he seems to have a playoff boost at the moment recently. What do you think about his recent performances?
I think in the beginning he seemed pretty stressed, like his nerves were hitting him pretty hard. But recently, like I think generally in the last month, Nisqy has been playing really well. And I think it definitely shows now, like he's really stepping it up.
Final question for you. Who do you think will take it in the end?
I think that Nisqy is going to carry another 2 games and that Splyce will win 3-1.
All right, well, let's see about that. Now back to Caster for picks and bans.
Well, a lot of faith in Nisqy there. I mean, he has gone through the hero's journey. It was a struggle in Game 1 when he died on that Caitlyn trap, and then he came back and killed literally everybody. So it would be an epic tale for sure.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Nisqy can do. So far in every single game, he's been the one picking up all of the kills.
Yep.
And to be fair, in Game 1, he couldn't do much with the tools that he was given that his bot lane was falling behind and everything was falling behind for him. But Game 2, everything was even and he was really able to shine.
So this pick and ban phase here. Game 3, Vitality on blue side again. Last time they first picked the Trundle. They were like, this is great. We can ban away Kasing, get a good matchup for Gilius. Didn't do anything in game. Completely backfired. So many key picks were left open for Splyce to use. This one here, let's see if they ban the Cassiopeia as the 3rd ban this time.
The first 2 bans remaining pretty constant at this point in the series. The 3rd ban, the flexible one, will be the Kha'Zix. The Trundle actually banned away. Interesting strategy now comes through. Jiizuké apparently not entirely convinced of the raw power of Cassio in the hands of Nisqy. May want to try something different against it this time around.
They can also, of course, ban Cassiopeia in the 2nd round if it doesn't get picked early. Caitlyn should be the ban from Splyce, and that's what we get now to prevent Vitality from first picking it and try and guarantee that great matchup on the bottom side. But we might just see Xerxe match the jungle pick here and say, you get Olaf, that's okay, we take the Skarner. But Gilius was successful on Olaf in the first game.
You know, and I actually think they'd be willing to give over the Skarner Cassio once again, largely because from their perspective, from looking at Vitality, where they've had the most success is the duo of Olaf and Taliyah. When they're able to find that pressure mid and then roam off to a side, that is where they found a lot of their early game success. So I feel like Vitality are going to go back to that style.
And of course, Splyce just keeping it consistent. They lost 1 game with these opening picks. They won 1 game with the opening picks. But now the Thresh is coming in. We've seen this banned in phase 2. A little bit of a mix-up here. No longer the Tom Kench. Jactroll is here to play.
So Vitality realized in the last game, it was a passive bot lane that they couldn't actually play around. Vedius already talked about how it had to go top lane. It was into an Ornn. It really sucked for Vitality to try and execute these early game plays. Now they want to playmaker bot lane. And Jactroll, he's a very good Thresh player, but this was supposed to be the champion that would counter Kasing because he only played ranged supports. He's playing Braum now. He's not going to be too scared of this pick from Jactroll, but it does give Vitality a lane to play around.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And when we talk so much about where is the Taliyah going to go, like now, when you have this bot lane, definitely piques our interest. The question is, will we see more AD carry bans just like we did in Game 2? It seems like that the trend is going to continue with that.
Will we see Ziggs banned again?
I feel like we will.
Because the Ziggs Thresh is a combination Vitality can use to try and destroy the enemy bot lane.
And that they've used very successfully, but we wanted to know if Cassio was going to be the pick this time around. Vitality say no, not going to happen, not going to give Nisqy the chance to carry his team again. We'll have to see what else he has in his pocket to bring it home.
I'm pretty sure when Yamada Cannon saw the last game, he turned a page in his book. He wrote down a new pick and ban phase, and I think Cassiopeia ban was probably the first thing he put on as one of the things they had to aim for in this one. There's the Ziggs ban against Vitality. And in case you guys are completely confused, why on earth would they do this? Much earlier on in the split, Vitality used this Ziggs for Minitroupax to absolutely dumpster Splyce.
Yep.
and beat them in like 25 minutes. So they have to respect it.
And now I wonder if Vitality continue to ban AD carries, because last time we saw a Jhin and a Tristana ban from the side of Vitality to limit the pool a little bit more against Kobbe. The Tristana will actually be taken off him. So I don't think a Jhin will be the highest of priorities. I feel like they could go for the Ezreal again. Still very safe.
Yeah, I think when you see the Thresh on the enemy side, you can definitely favor the more mobile AD carry, expecting the enemy team to try and play around it, because Splyce knows that Taliyah is left open again, and this time the Cassiopeia is banned. So there's a good chance it is just Taliyah plus an AD carry who can actually provide some early kill pressure for Vitality as the last 2 picks in this draft. So I think the Ezreal makes a lot of sense, just more safety.
And Jhin, you know, one of those picks, if Minitroupax wants to pick it up for himself here, that does give him the ability to start some of these plays off, to initiate some of these fights. With him and Jactroll having all these ways to engage, may see them be a more active part of the team than they were in the previous game.
I always get a little worried about Jhin into champions like Braum and Ornn. Given the long-range engage that you do have on an Ornn, it becomes easier to interrupt the ulti, and also you have the Braum shield too.
He could Jinx again. Like, Jinx Thresh is a good combo with the traps and the hook being used by Jactroll to then set up the plays with Taliyah coming bot lane. Oh, it's a Sivir.
Instead, Sivir going to be the one to come out here.
Ooh, don't need to block. You don't need to dodge Ezreal Qs if you can just absorb them.
Give me more mana, says Minitroupax. Ready to go. Of course,
this is it. The mid lane.
We need to know what else is Nisqy going to play here.
He had
what is
Zoe
the
last time in game 1. He got all the early kills with it. Could be the choice against Splyce. Kasing is also still one of the champions you have to look towards when it is Taliyah being locked in mid. This one is different. 3 different picks now for Nisqy in that mid lane.
A lot more variety. This Azir pick did not look good for Nisqy in the regular season. Was not his strongest champion overall, but you can see Splyce putting a lot more faith in him over the course of these playoffs.
Also a lot harder on Azir compared to Zoe or the Cassiopeia to get early pressure, early kills. Even if you're trying to join fights, generally you need a bit more time. Azir's early game got nerfed multiple times. Riot really hated that early game. He's still great scaling. But I think on the side of Splyce, the goal is to make sure now that you just do not fall behind in one of the side lanes in the early game.
But I do think, or I'm a little more concerned for Splyce looking at this draft, because they've gone more towards the scaling route, which definitely does not feel like what they've shown so far in this series, right? And you have an Azir who will spike nicely on 2 items, even arguably on the first item, and then same goes for Ezreal. They both have these strong mid-game spikes, but Vitality can look to force a lot of things early, largely because of the Olaf and the Sion duo that they have available to them.
Yeah, and while Vitality could have picked maybe a different AD carry that had a little bit more kill pressure.
I agree.
On bottom side, I think they want what we saw in the first game of like Righteous Glory, Olaf, engage from Sion, and then now Sivir ulti to once you get ahead, you can just force plays. You don't have to set up Baron beautifully if you can always click 3 ultis and run at the enemy team.
And we've got to remember the Vitality semi-final versus Fnatic, where they picked the Sivir into the Ezreal from Reckless, and they just pushed and pushed and pushed. And that was actually game 2, where they took a lot of early towers, enabling Jiizuké to roam around the map a lot earlier into the game.
Early game snowballing may once again be the name of the game here for the side of Vitality. How will Splyce combat it this time? Can they match the early game aggression that they've managed to find in game 2? Will they get too eager? Will they try too hard to shut down Vitality? We're going to find out as we move into game 3. Both teams at 1-1, both looking to move up to match point in this best of 5.
We've had 2 pretty crazy games so far. Game 1, sheer early game dominance from Vitality. They get an early lead and they never let it go. Whereas in game 2, Splyce answer back with the man in the mid lane, Nisqy. He gets his hands on a comfort pick for Cassio, he snowballs out of control, and it was he that was able to equalize the score in the series.
And while it was easier to snowball like Cassiopeia, Azir, you can still gank for him with level 6 from Skarner. Like the exact same gank setup could happen from Xerxe, because his top lane and bot lane, it's kind of hard to play aggressive around those lanes. Yep. And a lot more is actually on Vitality's playmaking. I also like, with the Olaf, that potential tower dive they could do against a tank. There's a bit more damage coming in from Vitality.
And one thing we saw last game was we finally got the answer to, will Splyce play around the mid lane? The answer is yes. They set up Nisqy for success. So it's no longer, bot side or top side. We've seen that they can bring Nisqy into the fold and really set him up here in this series.
Looking at some of the early jungle starts, we can see Xerxe getting a pull from his bottom lane. This will mean that Troupax and Jactroll reach the lane first. They've already... I thought they would go for an early push. I'm but instead they're just
preparing it.
Yeah,
they're preparing it. If you push too hard, level 1 in the bot lane, the enemy team ends up just having to sit under the turret, and then your level 2 will not do anything because they're already on the turret.
Yep.
So he's just prepping a little bit, but he's still pushing so hard that Splyce's bot lane will just wait, and then you cannot get the all in. Just a bit of poke. Nice damage.
Good trades coming out. A couple of pots though. Klepto on the Ezreal means that he will be able to sustain up as long as he keeps landing those Qs. Was a bit of a struggle in the previous game. Maybe a little bit easier this time around.
Don't see anything too unconventional in some of the keystones that everyone is running. We have the Unsealed Spellbook on the Braum, always fun to see. Aftershock coming out from Jactroll, no cleanse. Shouldn't be too much of an issue against the composition that Splyce have drafted themselves though, but you can see that Kobbe and Kasing struggling a lot in this 2 versus 2. Jactroll, we talked about how he is that playmaking individual, and when he gets his hand on a comfort like Thresh, he can make these kind of plays. Jiizuké already forced a flash.
Early flat play, still playing so confident despite the setup that they had in the previous game. Jiizuké has to be careful here in the mid lane.
I think he kind of realized that if he got hit by that skill shot from Xerxe, Xerxe could flash instantly onto him and just stun him right there. And Jiizuké, probably from the last game, was told by his coach, less aggression, you gotta be careful. As long as you don't die early game, you're gonna do fine. And this one here, that early flash could end up hurting him a lot, especially when Nisqy hits level 6. How do you stop Nisqy from flying in and knocking you back with his ulti?
And is Nisqy's Azir going to be as good as his Cassio in this game? That's what we're going to have to find out, because you can see he was so active in the first and the second game, and he's just been looking better and better as this series has progressed.
Now to give some context on the significant difference in the damage percentages, in game 1, you have to remember that no one else on the team did any damage.
They
was
just
all
died.
just Nisqy. Everyone else was dying, which is why Nisqy was doing so much of it. And you're playing a Zoe, who's a big poke champion, whereas there was a lot more contribution, but it was Nisqy finding those solo kills on the DPS that Cassio was able to throw out.
And of course, you can check out how Jiizuké is going to play this matchup if he can survive up against Nisqy after a brutal defeat in Game 2 over on twitch.tv/RiotGames2.
This time, the screen should be less gray.
For now.
He does not have flash.
Yeah.
Skarner will hit level 6 soon.
Let's just wait for that level 6 in the mid lane and then see what happens. Gilius is in the enemy jungle, not finding anything except for this low Spire here he can actually use. But bot lane, Sivir, Thresh are just perma-pushing against Kobbe and Kasing. It is so difficult for Splyce's bot lane to do anything, even having to respect a potential roam from the enemy mid laner. So they're just struggling, but they're trying to hold on and defend the turret for as long as possible.
Xerxe is here to back him up, but in the meantime, Gilius just says, I'll take a free objective if you're going to give it to me. Picking up the Cloud, maybe not the Ocean the tanks in the top lane would have wanted, or any of the other Drakes that everyone else would have wanted, but still a solid pickup in the early game.
Now, while the bottom lane is going in favor of Minitroupax, look at the difference in farm in mid. Nisqy's actually been able to build himself up an 11 CS lead very early on into the game, whereas Jiizuke's just kind of been blindly pushing, trying to get a couple of favorable trades. And Nisqy, he's not afraid.
Good movement, but goes right through the unraveled earth. Maybe not quite the trade that he wanted. Heal now burned in exchange for nothing on the side of Jiizuké.
Jiizuké got so many free hits onto the Azir right there and actually won the trade. Nisqy could have waited for level 6 before doing anything, but he went aggressive to also try and dodge a little knockback from Jiizuké.
Look at all the pings mid. Vitality's like, Xerxe's coming mid, Xerxe's coming mid. Dude, careful. Xerxe's on his way mid. He does have Predator as well. He will obviously be spotted out on a control ward.
Look at this from Jactroll. All the pressure on the bottom side means he just gets to roam up into this mid lane and threaten, say, hey, let my mid laner farm, let him push out, or we will look to make some action happen in the mid lane.
Gilius is trying again to find some camps. Now Raptors spawned, but Xerxe is here. Both mid laners are very low.
Xerxe with the level advantage, not exactly
Jactroll.
what Gilius wanted to see.
He might try and hook him over the wall.
Goes in.
He has a flash.
Shifting Sands is available, will make his way out, but that means more pressure in the mid lane. TP going to be used mid by Kasing, it looks like. Unsealed Spellbook means he can show up there to back up, but Nisqy going to need some support from his team.
Now note that Nisqy hasn't actually gone back to base yet, sitting at about 52 farm. You would imagine that he's going to go just for an early stinger, have that extra attack speed, and start working towards that Nash's tooth.
We have that level 6 for him now if he wants to set up that gank against Jiizuké, who's still very low in that mid lane, once Nisqy returns. Fun thing, Kasing actually after the first base came back with 3 wards. Let's see what happens, a little trade.
Playing the hook. Unbreakable is there though.
But he returned to the map with 3 control wards and used them just very quickly to clear out whatever vision Vitality had around mid lane, near where the Braum is now, and then he can still actually use a 3rd one. after that back. So a lot of gold spent instantly on wards, but he did get a lot of value from it.
Flash is still not up for Jiizuké, so he has a little bit of a window here if he wants to punish that summoner spell being down. 48 seconds to find a gank in the mid lane.
And now with that control ward just placed by Kasing near the blue buff of Splyce, there's a clear path for Xerxe to take. Once he gets close enough to that lane, can activate Predator, there should be no way for Jiizuké to actually escape if Nisqy plays it correctly.
But he may just go for the play a little bit earlier to Fisher. You can already see him sitting in the top lane brush. They know that Jiizuké is on his way back. You would imagine that they have the flash timing ready and available.
Hook does connect. Nice little input buffer there to get out to safety.
Also, mid lane at the moment, Nisqy is trying his hardest not to push the lane. Ooh. He wants these minions to stay around here so that Jiizuké has to step forward, but that flash is ready.
Is this too obvious from Splyce?
No flash from the mid lane, and we ganked him last time when we had level 6 on Skarner. Yeah, it's gonna happen again. Jiizuké, he knows, and this time Nisqy and the rest of Splyce realizing they're not gonna get any.
May have telegraphed it a little bit when they bought Vision and only placed it around mid lane.
And look at the path that Gilius took too. He went from his blue round to warding in the river. Now they have that Vision available, so Xerxe can't take that creative path that you were just talking about, Deficio. Instead, he has his eyes set on bot.
But what's so good for Vitality is Jiizuké doesn't die mid. That's where the attention is put towards from Splyce. Minitroupax is still just pushing bot lane.
Yep.
That bot lane turret is gonna die fairly soon if this keeps happening. And Splyce, their answer last game was mid. Not this time around.
Pings are going down onto the middle lane now. They just want to have that priority so they can move in towards the enemy blue buff and start to contest from the side of Vitality.
Using the pressure, using Gilius as a weapon here. As they're saying, in the meantime, they're just going to focus on taking this camp. And you can see Nisqy forced to take the safe way around to try to secure this one, but Gilius ready with the contest. Is he going to have to burn Smite to secure it? Looks like we'll be able to force him back for now.
Now the pings are coming down onto the tier 1 in the bottom lane. If our observers could quickly pan down to see how much HP it does have left available, it is primed and ready to be taken. TP is unavailable from both top laners, which means that Vitality feel pretty confident that they can force the 4 versus 4, and ideally, this tower.
Predator used. Of course, Ezreal going to use the ulti to try to break this one out. On the hunt used as well.
Interesting.
Vitality just backing off here. The movement speed not used for much of anything. Maybe expecting more of an engage from the side of Splyce.
I just like the setup from Vitality. Contest blue buff, Nisqy gets it in the end, but it's been delayed a little bit. And then Nisqy has to go back and catch a wave mid, which allows Jiizuké with mid lane priority to then go bot lane. And he doesn't need to commit to a kill, just keep hovering around to get more damage on the turret. They also got blue wards everywhere, so this tower here, it will eventually die. And it's on Splyce to try and prevent that from happening by making an aggressive play.
And you can see the focus on pushing comes in from Minitroupax, just the Berserker's Greaves in his inventory. All he cares about is auto-attacking that wave, keeping things going. Meanwhile, the mid lane, Jiizuké just doing his best to look tasty as they try to set up a 3-man play here. Nisqy not going to take the bait, though, as he moves out on the top side.
And you know you're not spotted when there's 4 control wards you walk by. Your own control wards, of course, to get to that mid lane. Obviously, Splyce relying just on pure communication and nothing else.
I feel like Vitality like playing around bot lane in this series, Deficio. And in the game 2 where they couldn't do it, we saw how much the team ended up struggling. Especially when Cabo not playing things like the Gangplank or the Camille, which he often found success with during the regular season.
Very true. And now Minitroupax got a good back. Ended up pushing in the wave, recalled. You can see he's already returning to lane by the time Kobbe and Kasing are leaving the fountain in their own base. Once again, allowing Vitality to just push in, get more damage on the turret, and keep full bot side control.
And while Vitality are building up a steady advantage here on the bottom side of the map, trying to pressure out that tower, you can see that Jiizuké is suffering in the mid lane while he has not died yet. The pressure being laid down from all this vision is forcing him off a lot of this CS, 91 to 107.
Yeah, and when your bot lane is losing this hard and you can't make a play there, you have to go for top side then if you're Splyce and attack him there, but they didn't do it.
Gonna get hooked, Unraveled Earth knocks him right back over the wall, tries to flash to safety, also trying to take himself out. Is he gonna go down? Ignite is ticking, first blood! Minitroupax over the wall, secures it for Vitality.
And Kasing is just trying to help his team out, trying to get a bit of vision. They're expecting Jiizuké to roam down, but this is the power of those 4 control wards we were talking about in the river. It belonged to Vitality, and they punished Jiizuké.
Unraveled Earth doesn't connect, trying to find a way back, does use the ult. Has to push him away. Nisqy gonna make it out to safety. Good patience comes in, but Jactroll with the flash, it does connect! What a madman in the mid lane! Nisqy gonna go down, TP coming in, but it's too little too late from Kasing.
And we talked about how Jactroll, he can make the big plays on champions like Thresh. He roams to the mid lane again, and this time he gets it. Nisqy not using the summoners early on to try and dodge around it, and he gets surprised. He dies, and Vitality, they're controlling this game.
Now with the Drake alive, Vitality have a clear objective that they can move towards. So much control from Vitality in Game 3.
And they keep the control because Xerxe is trying to defend his losing bottom lane. Instead of him saying, no, you know what? I will attack the enemy mid laner from the top side where we have control wards. I will go maybe gank the enemy Sion instead and see if we can gain something. By him consistently trying to defend bot.
Oh!
They got that one.
Well, Lantern was there a little bit too late.
I guess Vitality got a little bit too confident.
But it's a baby smite. You know, it's okay for...
Classic caster curse. You know, you flame a player and immediately he does something to shut you up.
It's true. Gilius didn't have smite ready.
That too.
You can use that one as an excuse this time.
That's very, very true. So, Vitality, their eyes is still on this tier 1 in the bottom lane. The fact that Nisqy was shut down, he has no summoner spells, could be another opportunity.
And this is actually bigger than just the Drake going over to Splyce. Gilius was so low after doing it. Him having to force, you know, they're forcing his backs here to just be cancelled every single time. He's low, there's no flash now. This entire bottom side with all the vision from Vitality, they're gone now. Those wards are dead because they invested everything to try and secure some objectives. That backfired, and now it's Splyce suddenly actually with all the wards.
A good look for the team overall as they try to take control of mid lane. We'll set them up to back off and reset. Not what Vitality needed to keep the ball rolling, so Splyce at least firing back to kind of stop any snowball in its tracks. 1-to-1 on the Cloud Drake will be nice for the Skarner to have, especially if they can look to continue to find those picks.
And Jiizuké's flash is gone. I have to remember that. Xerxe's flash is available. Now he's on that top side. We know there's control what he can use to gank. Jiizuké can't push forward if he doesn't know where the jungler is. Bottom turret, of course, going down. This was the big problem of just Vitality pushing in 24/7.
But you talk about mid laner, summoner spells unavailable. Nisqy, no flash, no heal either. Gilius already found a successful gank in mid, and with the boots of mobility that Jactroll does have, we'll see if he looks to try and force another play himself. Nisqy was the big carry in Game 2.
And Game 1.
And Game 1, he did accept a lot of the kills. So far in Game 3, Vitality said, you know what, we've had enough of you, Nisqy. We're going to try and put you a little bit behind, as Splyce's bot lane also struggle in the 2 vs 2.
And a much calmer game than either of the first two. We kind of talked about it a little bit in Game 2, jinxed it, and immediately people started killing each other left and right. But both teams seem a little bit more content to scale up. However, with the bottom tower down now, it does give Vitality priority to start moving around the map.
Now remember, we talked about the goal of Splyce's composition. They do have a pretty strong 2-item spike with the Azir and the Ezreal. And if they're going to look to force any plays, that'll be the time to do it. When you have a Braum and an Ornn in your composition, your team fighting is very good. But the risk that you have against Vitality's comp is when they get a slight lead like they have now, their ability to engage in force fights before Splyce get there is also incredibly strong.
Now, will Xerxe protect his top side, or his top lane in this case with Kobbe and Kasing, or will he go mid and try and kill Jiizuké without that flash? We know it's a potential for a very easy kill if he can get in there unnoticed. For now, it is completely warded up, and Vitality, they control top side. Splyce are very far behind in terms of actual map movements, and it is a Rift Herald.
And of course, on top of this, no pressure on the map, so it's not even like they get to trade this objective for anything. Vitality getting the Rift Herald completely uncontested and now returning to those even lanes exactly what they wanted.
I feel like this just goes back to one of the big narratives that we did have for Splyce, in that Xerxe is the catalyst. In Game 2, when he found that gank in the middle lane,
he's going
gave
now.
everything that Nisqy needed to snowball with the game. And so far, all he's been doing is trying to mitigate the pressure from Vitality rather than trying to create opportunities for his team.
This is what's scary, because now as the Rift Herald is used mid, it's a little bit tougher for him to isolate out Jiizuké. Kobbe was there as well. They're free to group up as 5 around the mid lane. Splyce want to see what they can do to match, but they're going to lose the mid lane tower regardless. Vitality happy with just having that small advantage.
And Vitality just abusing the fact they have their winning bot lane, they can push in, and the fact that Nisqy on Azir, not the same kind of early impact we've seen on some of the other champions he's played so far in this series. So good control, 2 turrets down, they straight towards the top lane as well. They can already land a bit of damage onto it with currently a fairly formed up Sivir.
Didn't go for the Essence Reaver first, didn't need it. Static Shift giving a lot of burst and a lot of extra wave clear there. And now Jiizuké really feeling himself in mid lane. Pretty comfortable to keep this one going. Tries to chase him down there with a threaded volley, but Nisqy is going to make it out.
He knows he can play this aggressively because of the amount of vision he has on the top side of the map. Vitality are just making sure that anything past the river anywhere is in their control. And Splyce, again, playing on the back foot.
Yeah, we got to give a lot of credit to them for how they're protecting mid. When he doesn't have flash, it makes it very difficult for Xerxe to do anything. I think Xerxe still have tried too much to play towards the enemy strong side, which has made it harder for him to actually try and get Nisqy ahead in this game, even though he's been hovering around. it's been a slow early game for Splyce. They're not as far down as in game 1, however.
Yes.
They can still try and stall, but Vitality are in control.
And that's one of the big strengths that Splyce have always had, their ability to team fight. Players like Kobbe have always come out strong when you're in those 5v5 situations. His positioning is so reliable. He's always a consistent damage threat. And it's still an avenue with which Splyce can look to rely on as the game progresses. It's all about how efficiently and how effectively Vitality can utilize this early game lead.
Can they keep snowballing, and can they stop Splyce from doing anything with 2-item spikes? We're going to find out. There's a play over the wall. Hook is going to connect. Lantern goes back, bringing Gilius over. No longer scared of that one, but it's the flash out to safety from Kasing. Now backing off. Jiizuké throws out a threaded volley. Connects a bit of damage. Kobbe. Great use of the shift there. Minitroupax now pressuring. We could just see the full-on fight. Everybody moving into this one, trying to isolate a target, trying to pick off Jactroll. He may just get taken down. Odoamne now wants to turn and burn here. Call the 4-jar, giving it knocked back and will connect on 2 members. Splyce collapsing beautifully to turn the fight.
Big plays. We just talked about how Splyce are not far enough behind in this game that they can't do anything. So they're actually looking for the play here. Vitality, they were hungry for something. They wanted this top lane turret, but they went too far with this tower dive here. Jiizuké dancing around behind the turret, trying to land some damage, and then suddenly it's Jactroll being left behind, and now it's Splyce with kills. They're getting a bunch of damage on this turret, and look at mid lane as well.
Splyce are looking to take everything away from Vitality. They want to close this gold gap. They want to make up for the deficit they fell behind, and now look at Jiizuké. He's going to get knocked up.
Knockup is going to connect. They're going to find the follow-up immediately. Jiizuké now in trouble. Flash forward, no hesitation. Nisqy going to grab the kill.
Another good punish there from Splyce. They'll secure themselves the mid-tier 1, and the gold is dead even.
Everything Vitality did earlier in the game, all the pushing in the bottom lane, the control around mid, suddenly that gold lead is just gone because they go too far. Look at this play here. They want to go for Kasing first, onto the Braum. They have multiple members showing up to top side, so they have the numbers advantage for now. But this play takes so long, and only one member actually wants to try and tower dive. Now Splyce can react.
Yeah, if the minion wave had hit the tower a little earlier, perhaps Vitality could have turned this in their favor. But then we see a bit of miscommunication coming in. Look at how Cabochard goes in as the rest of Vitality goes out, giving an extra kill over to the side of Splyce and closing that gold gap.
Top lane turret did die here. Vitality took it down.
And look at the damage output from Kobbe. We talked about how he is the individual that in these fights is so reliable. Always in a good position, always doing what he needs to do. Secures himself a big teamfight win for Splyce.
Exactly what they wanted, but Deficio, as you noted, the tower did go down, so Vitality do get a small gold edge, but it's traded for the Cloud Drake in 2 items, Vedius. Right on schedule. We were just behind moments ago, and now it seems like Splyce are in that powerful position you talked about earlier.
And think about how easy it is for them to force fights with the Ornn. One of the issues that they had in game 1 was it was difficult for them to get onto the backline, but now if they want to fight, they have so many options available.
Oh, Gilius. Flashback to game 1 there for just a moment. Thought he might go down, but they're not going to commit to an Olaf with ulti available.
And while there's a lot of engage, as you highlight with the Ornn on the side of Splyce, to see at the top.
Jiizuké.
Oh, and missing everything.
The ulti, good sidestep. Use on the hunt comes in. Jiizuké now goes forward. He's looking for the outplay. The heal comes in from Minitroupax. There to back up his brother in arms. Kasing now running for his life. Vitality may have found the turn here. Another undertow connects. Kasing just running. Xerxe leaving him to die. They're going to pick up the prize there. Vitality happy with the exchange.
Too many skill shots dodged right there for Jiizuké. He made sure he could actually stay alive for just long enough for his team to show up. Another hook.
Oh, Nisqy now hooked up. Minitroupax going to try to bring it back. Wants a little bit more damage. Not going to commit the flash there to make the play.
No vision for Vitality, so they didn't want to commit. And now they have their eyes set on the Baron. Xerxe's still healthy. No flash, though. They're going to have to commit hard if they want to challenge this.
Jiizuké getting lower and lower. They're taking a lot of Baron damage. They get the ulti out from Odo. It's going to hit 3-4 members. Spellshield's going to block it for Minitroupax. Jiizuké so low. Vitality going to have to back off. Splyce hold on for now.
Strike from Odoamne and everyone from Vitality step away. But that all started in the top lane with what looked like a 2v1 duel that Splyce could actually win. But then every single skill shot just missed. 1v1 first. Jiizuké lands a knockback, ton of damage, and now, okay, let's see what happens here. So Q from both members missing, then ulti from Kasing missing, and while Kobbe thinks he can go in for the kill, the heal is there, and he's mad. He needed 1 skill shot to hit before this, and he could actually have killed him.
But Jiizuké with the fancy footwork, making up for his game 2 performance and getting himself a 1v2 outplay after Kobbe committed so hard into trying to get that kill.
Beautiful play overall, but of course, while you guys are chilling, mid-season invitational tickets are on sale now. see who manages to make it from Europe in tomorrow's game. For now, back to Vitality and Splyce. And Odoamne looked a lot more confident in those tank trades, but I still can't imagine this is a lane where we're going to see a lot of action.
No, it's going to be around Baron. We have to look. All potential dragons spawning soon, but it is Vitality still in control. They have Righteous Glory on Gilius. They can force fight effectively by him just popping that one item and going straight for Splyce, but it's difficult in this Baron area. Ornn ulti covers a lot of that river, and Nisqy, if he gets any time to just sit and hammer away with the soldiers, then Vitality going to be forced away. So this is the kind of game where they need to actually closely follow all these steps, pushing mid and top, get full vision in the river, get vision behind the Baron to spot when Splyce is showing up, and then turn to fight them if they get too close with this Righteous Glory on Gilius. For now, those Splyce are happy just trying to stall.
And we can see too, if you look across the itemization, strong points coming in for just about every carry on both sides. Minitroupax gonna use the ulti to make it out. Kasing burning his in exchange for another. Good control comes in from Splyce to take everything in the mid lane. They set up the Sun Disc as well. They're ready to siege up this tier 2, and they're not in a position to respond.
No, Vitality forgot about the mid lane prior first. Splyce were the ones pushing it, and Vitality were the ones looking for a pick in that river, which ended up costing them a lot of damage on the mid lane turret.
Meanwhile, though, Kobbe keeps the push on the bottom side of the map, wants to get something back. Kobbe clears the wave as best he can. Vitality need to be careful. They would lose the mid tier 2 if they make another play like that. Now, Righteous Glory has been popped. Gilius just trying to ward them off. Sends Splyce a message. Hook does not connect, and Vitality are going to have to back away. Xerxe looks to control the jungle for now, but Baron pick control going to go over to Vitality. Kobbe's on the way into the mid lane as Odo's still on the bottom side.
Now, Kobbe had pushed up bot, giving him a window to move and group up with the rest of his team. They also had priority up in the top lane too, but Kobbe is forced to answer. Now, Vitality, they could have used this numbers advantage, or they have rather, to get a bit of vision back across the river. So they're going to go back to base, restock those wards, and then look to come back to the Baron and start fighting for vision once more.
I also want to highlight that Odoamne has banner, not the same on Cabochard's side. So it's much easier for Odoamne to push a wave, put a banner there, and walk away. And it will do a lot of work for him in terms of pushing against Vitality. Cabochard needs to be there and push it back himself. Otherwise, it's just going to stay down towards Vitality's side of the map. There's still one dematerializer left for Kobbe. He just used one just before this one. And Odoamne turns the favor with his own dematerializer.
Running out of quick answers here. Both top laners with TP, though, can show up if needed. Infernal Drake next on the menu if either team wants to go for it. After 3 clouds to start it off will be a little bit tough, but Vitality remain focused on controlling the Baron pit. Do not want to give any edge over here to Splyce.
Like these control wards outside the pit from Vitality, making sure that there are no sneaky wards either side of the entrance to the Baron. Will give them full control over the river. Complete darkness now for Splyce, but they're the ones constantly getting mid-priority with Nisqy on this Azir. 2 levels up over his mid lane opposition. 281 farm. Even though Nisqy did get killed early on, he's continuing to have a good performance in this series.
Can Vitality force a fight? Can they try?
Well, this Infernal Drake, rather, could be a good opportunity to see if they can do it.
An arena for them to do so. The pick onto Nisqy. The chain CC now coming in, but no damage is there to back it up. The heal immediately used. Odo now going to look for the counter engage. Nisqy does manage to make it out, but Gilius is in the middle of everybody. Not able to bring it home. Another hook from Jactroll, but he may go down in the meantime to Kobbe. They're now on the retreat. Minitroupax and Jiizuké are untouched, but the tank line has taken so much damage in return. No one going to drop.
Vitality funneled into a choke point, trying to go for that kill onto Nisqy, but with a good ultimate, they're able to dissuade. Now Splyce regrouping on a challenge this Drake.
Gilius gonna get the smite down. Will heal up a little bit. Drake now secured. 3K gold lead for Vitality. They're feeling quite comfortable. Baron could be the next objective in their sights.
That was close. Perfect start for Vitality, hooking the enemy mid laner.
Yep.
Setting up suddenly Gilius to jump in there and see if you can actually kill him in time. I think Splyce could have turned and shut down the Olaf very quickly, but they were very busy trying to kill the enemy backline, and suddenly no one ended up dying, but a bunch of flashes being used. Gilius and Jactroll missing it for the next one. That can be big, because they're the ones trying to dive in and kill the enemy team. If they go too far, they're not getting out. And of course, Nisqy, no flash on his side. He was the target last one.
Kobbe, no flash either. Both carries, no flashes, means if Jactroll does land that all-important hook, it's not really a way out from the death sentence, and Braum with no way to stop that CC.
But now they lost 4 to 5 control wards around Baron on the side of Vitality, and you look at the inventory, they're only returning with 3 control wards, 2 of them even being on Jiizuké. They cannot set up the same kind of control they had before. That's gone now.
Have to wait on the play.
No flash.
Jactroll retreating, tries to play them back. On the hunt now used. Lantern only there to protect himself. Xerxe going to move forward. Are they going to find it? They will manage to take him down. A lot of resources committed there on the top side.
We were just talking about the vision there from Vitality Deficio, and with a lack of it, Jactroll face checks and ends up getting punished by Splyce. They're now the ones setting up for the Baron. They do have teleport available on Odo. Don't have pressure down towards the bottom line.
It cost so much time for Vitality that they were playing around bottom side here, took a fight, it went even. Yes, they got the Drake, which was good, but then they lost everything on top lane, and now we might see Cabochard dying.
Oh. Have to run, uses the ultimate to make it out.
Up in the air.
Call the Forge God is there.
Don't have to chase him. It's just a tank.
I think they just wanted to interrupt his back, thinking that he was going back to base in the brush. He will not be allowed to do that. And funnily enough, because two members are invested bot, Vitality can get a bit of vision control back, but as you identified, they had no vision in their inventory anyway, so the best they can do is take the Spire. They drop a couple of their trinkets down, but aside from that, Splyce is still very comfortable with what they can see on the map.
And now we get into a bit of a messier late game. 3 control wards coming in for Gilius as he tries to remedy some of the vision problems, but this is not the clean snowballs we saw in Game 1 or Game 2 from either of these teams. They're going to have to outplay each other on a macro level to come home here with a win.
We've seen 3 very different games so far. Vitality Stomp, a Splyce Stomp, and now a very even back and forth. But you always look at the scaling options. And when you think about it, Sivir, massive late game threat. Her AoE damage is huge, and she is on 3 items. Same goes for Splyce in the mid lane. Azir is such a terror in these late game fights if he is allowed to just use the Azir Sand Soldiers to just constantly chip away at his opposition. These 2 individuals are going to be so crucial to the success of these later fights.
Gilius threatening there, using all the movement items just to try to bully Xerxe away. They're trying to get control of the pit. But as you said, Vedius, so much is going to be about setup, about getting the fight on their terms, about finding out who can actually get a pick to start it off.
And we have to keep looking at Jactroll on the Thresh. If he can hide in the brushes, no vision on him, he can land the hook. That sets up the fight. There's still no flashes on the Splyce carries. Could be a big play for Vitality in the coming minute around this Baron. They got the control now, but all of Splyce, they're still around. And remember, this massive Ornn ulti near that Baron pit, it's going to be huge.
And they look for the engage here. Odoamne is going to get knocked up. A little bit of follow-up there, but not a ton of damage. Talk about Minitroupax being the carry option for Vitality. Jactroll, not only is he relied on for the hooks, but also itemizing to make sure that Minitroupax can do his job as the Zeke's convergence comes out. Kobbe, though, they have stayed too long. On the hunt has now been burned. They're going to try to look to turn this one back. Taliyah wall on the backside. Meanwhile, separating the fight as Xerxe goes down. No one has dropped in the meantime. Kobbe in the middle of everything. 2 members knocked up. Minitroupax untouched. A beautiful fight comes in. They want to clean it up. Kobbe runs for his life. Jiizuké, feeling frisky, goes for a bit more, but it's barren in the sights of Vitality.
Such a fantastic team fight for Vitality that was ended by a beautiful play from Jiizuké. What wonderful stuff as they secure themselves the Baron.
And this is how Vitality wants to play around a Baron. It's not starting it and dancing around. It's get a fight, win that fight, and then you get your objective as a reward after. It all started with Cabochard just sitting in that river, and it looked like Splyce trying to catch him out. There was no flash on him. That seemed to be the call to try and kill the enemy tank.
And look, you can see the Vitality, they're all funneled into this small choke point. You think this is a bad situation, but the Taliyah wall comes in from behind. Nisqy is out of the fight completely before Xerxe is even able to do anything. Then this 3-man knocker into the Taliyah field of death just rips Splyce apart and allows Vitality to get the Baron.
And Splyce are going to be so unhappy with that call. Clearly saying we can try and catch the enemy top laner. That 3 members chasing after him, forgetting the carries in the back, allowed Vitality to get in and just destroyed him. Great team fight from Vitality. Great setup from Jiizuké. And when they get that Baron, just like in Game 1, they tend to take basically your entire base.
They have the Sivir to push out these waves. They have Jiizuké to threaten. The zone control from the Taliyah so powerful against anyone who wants to leap into that back line. It is going to be difficult for Splyce to find a way back into this game. About 6K in the favor of Vitality. All eyes on Nisqy in these team fights. Can he do the damage necessary to bring it home?
Yeah, they have to hope they can just prevent an inhibitor from dying. Stall with wave clear from the Azir, but that's probably not enough if Splyce can push in multiple lanes. Oh, sorry, Vitality can push in multiple lanes. Small fight on bottom lane. Odoamne forcing them away for now.
Holding on to what they can. Inhibitor line hasn't broken, so no major advantages gained from this Baron quite yet.
Now, One of the big things that Vitality have to be careful of, because a bit of a skirmish happens down bot, is Sivir, pretty low range AD carry. Getting close to those towers against an Azir is always something that's very dangerous for the AD carry of Vitality. So she has to make sure that she has that pressure elsewhere on the map in order to safely walk up and start hitting the tower.
Jiizuké building a wall, trying to zone them away from the team, but has only trapped Gilius there. Little awkward. Gilius will be alive, however, and the siege will slowly continue.
So that was Odoamne's ulti used and Kobbe's to try and defend the turret for a little longer. There's another wave coming, but Gilius was very low, had to go back to base, and it looks like Splyce were able to stall the game. Didn't lose that in here, but lose a Drake. It's currently traded 3 for 2 in those. It's going to be big when we actually get the Elder Drake coming later. 1 minute left on Vitality's Baron buff. Seems to be staying around for now, hoping they can get that bot lane turret maybe.
Keeping up the pressure, though, trying to make the most of this final minute. There is two tier 2s rather left standing, and there'll be one left as this one does go down. Maybe they can pick up some of that standing gold on the map before the next Baron becomes the big point of contention.
They already have a big minion wave stacking up top, so it's very easy for Vitality to swiftly rotate up towards that side of the map, secure themselves the final tier 2 tower, and sit on a very healthy gold lead. The big challenge for them is how will they break into the base? Will they look to just stall out and wait for the next Baron to spawn? Or will they try and force a risky engage against this Splyce Line?
Odoamne a little too confident there. It's just going to get deleted.
I mean, that's the other option. Just find yourself a pick with the front liner dead and a 48-second death timer. Vitality should feel more than confident to go for the tower.
Vitality want an opening. That's definitely it. 13 seconds left on the Baron buff. They're going to be able to break this tower and at least break one inhibitor if they want to commit for it. Gilius does get very low, but Minitroupax is untouched. He keeps free hitting on this inhibitor. That's one down in the favor of Vitality. Kobbe desperate to get something back, but it's not going to find it.
I mean, Vitality, they're low, but they've gotten what they needed. They took a kill. They got an inhib as well. They can now step away. Successful first Baron for them. The second Baron, that's why we always look at teams and say, now you got to be able to finish it if you picked up 2 in a row. And Vitality, they can be happy. So for all that gold suddenly going towards them, all these outer turrets, they're dead. Almost a 10,000 gold lead. And Splyce, it was looking like an even game before the Baron fight.
Yep, it all came down to that one big fight. And now with the Sivir, level 17, with how well Jiizuké has been playing this Taliyah, the 2 big carries, 2 of the young rookies of this squad are looking good here in the Royal Arena.
Talk about backline threat being important. Unfortunately, Odoamne, yeah, he's got that great initiation option, but with the Mercurial Scimitar finished for Minitroupax, it's pretty hard for Xerxe to offer any backline threat, and got to be really careful with Nisqy leaping in when there's a Taliyah right there in that unraveled earth.
I mean, if you're Xerxe, you have 2 options. Either you use it on the front line as just further CC to try and keep him in check while you try and kill him if you have enough time, not the optimal one, or you flash onto Jiizuké. That is still going to be an option for you if you are a Xerxe. If you can actually get in there in time. Problem for him is there's so much damage on Vitality that when he's tried, he died very quickly.
Yep, very, very quickly. Looks like that he has picked himself up the locker, which will help him a little bit, but given how far ahead Vitality are, they're more than confident enough to just walk up towards the mid and bot. They do have a wave stacking once again up in the top lane.
You got to keep up the pressure as well for this team. Choking them out of vision on the side of Splyce. They will have to back eventually, but for now, they own just about the entire map. Truly terrifying right now for the side of Splyce. Need to find an avenue back to this game. Need to find a pick. Need to find something to get them started. Taliyah wall comes in, walls off multiple members of the team. Cannon Minion is there. They may just try to clear this one out, but Vitality are ready to contest forward, ready to push back. Unraveled Earth not going to be used. Gilius ready to threaten. Tower will go down. In the meantime, Minitroupax. It's a few hits onto Odo. The crit's coming through as it hits every member of the team, and another inhibitor is going to fall in favor of Vitality as Splyce are just forced away from their own base.
Love the confidence that we're seeing from Vitality. They land the hook.
Look on Odoamne, the immediate chain CC. They want to block. Kasing wants to disengage, but it might be too little, too late. Kobbe, in the middle of everything, just gets pulled right back out to safety, and now it's mid lane in the sights of Vitality.
Yeah, Xerxe tried to pull Cabochard into the turret, but this Thresh pick with the lantern is so crucial. They're going for more.
Nisqy, trading flashes there, may have looked for the shuffle.
I actually think he ran out of mana there. Wasn't able to use the ulti, and Jiizuké could just flash out in time. Will be a trade of summoner spells, but Vitality, they still have 4 members in the mid lane, and they have their eyes set on the 3rd and final hit.
One last tower in their sights. If they get the 3rd inhibitor, it'll be all too easy to end the game. They need to find some kind of advantage here. Kobbe standing on the front line, body blocking, make sure the Ezreal cannot get in. There's the pick potentially off onto Xerxe. May just go down right here. Minitroupax auto attacks now unstoppable. Jiizuké fearless on the front lines. Gilius now running in. He's going to pick up Kasing. Everything Vitality wanted. All it took was a single Baron fight. And Vitality just continued to bring it home. Nisqy pulled off and knocked back as Vitality looked to push for the win.
Such dominance once again from Vitality. They're gonna take us to match point as they crush Splyce in these later fights.
Two very one-sided games into this beautiful back and forth, but it's Vitality who reigns supreme in game 3.
Close around the 20-minute mark. Came down to some Baron fights, and Vitality didn't have to start the Baron to bait. They apparently just had to put Cabochard in the river without a flash, and then Splyce was like, oh, we gotta kill this guy. They jumped towards him, and that fight effectively decided the entire game in favor of Vitality.
But you can recognize that in that kind of a choke point with an Ornn, getting his ulti off onto that many members could have been a massive team fight, because you drag in the Sion, you just chunk him out and you use the Ornn ulti to keep everyone else away. But for me, the big determining factor was the Taliyah ulti. The fact that it zoned Nisqy out completely, one of the big damage threats, couldn't be involved in that fight at all.
And the thing is, as Splyce went to retreat, they walked into a choke point of their own. Right into the 3-man knockback from Jiizuké. The damage there from the Sivir, all she has to do is auto attack one target. It's gonna hit everybody. Played out exactly like Vitality wanted it to.
So 3 different kind of games.
Yep.
Now we saw Vitality win out on the slower one, but it came down to setting up team fights on their side. Nisqy tried his best, but again, as you highlighted, was not allowed in the fight on his side, and the front line of Splyce simply just died too quickly.
And there are a couple things that, for me, are big takeaways if you're Splyce. Gilius is so much more confident when he plays champions like Olaf, when he gets to work with his mid laner to find the opportunities to roam around the map, and just in general, trying to force plays. He just seems in his zone. He just seems to know what he's doing. And the other big thing is Jactroll on the Thresh. In terms of playmaking, I feel like that's a big thing that you have to consider taking away.
It was big for him, and of course the Sivir to just perma push bot lane was a good answer to this very passive defensive lane that we had on Splyce's side. But for the next game, if you're Splyce, and if you end up on red side again, because it's, of course, Vitality who can decide, and they can grab blue for themselves like they did in game 2, you can't really change your bans too much.
It's
because
true.
It's Ryze, Swain, and Caitlyn.
Yep.
3 of the biggest picks for Vitality. And if you want to get rid of, let's say, an Olaf, you probably don't have the choice.
A difficult place to be for sure, but for more on Vitality's win, let's get some thoughts from our analysts.
Thank you so much. We will be talking about the draft and what they could possibly drop as a ban at the end of this. I do want to zero in on this game specifically, as it was a very different game in feel than the previous 2. It was much more calmer in the early game, and it much more came down to what happened in the mid game.
Yeah, basically, the whole early game kind of showed that the playmaking of Thresh, obviously, like with hooks in the river, and it really like played to the combos that Vitality played, where they obviously went for the early aggression again, where they tried to bank these early plays. And Splyce, on the other hand, obviously drafted a comp that was more late game focused with the Azir especially, where they wanted to just go even in the early game and then work on it later. Didn't quite happen, the whole going even, because early on in the river, the amount of plays that Thresh was able to make basically set them so far back that they had to go for a miracle play on the top side, and it actually worked out.
And what we really saw was the Vitality that we praised so much in the early game. Even though there wasn't as much action, they were still doing the things that they always want to do. They push mid, they rotate into bot, they get the bot tower early. But in this game, Splyce actually capitalized on one of the mistakes that Vitality did in the top side.
I was just gesturing because I wanted to say, let's take a look at that replay,
Exactly.
because this is what you mentioned as well. A bit of a good hook again, and they go in, but Splyce is ready for it this time around.
Sometimes when you hit a hook, you just gotta go in. You know, it's not necessarily the best play, but in this case, they were really confident that they could still dive that turret because that works behind them. But they didn't account for the TP play that basically enabled Splyce to counteract a lot more early than Vitality was ready for. So the TP comes in, Skarner pulls him back, and then the team fight starts, and they were not in position for it.
With a draft like this, you can't really do as many so many mistakes, because if you start falling behind with champs like Taliyah and the enemy has Azir, then in team fights the Azir is going to do 10 times more. So this was a turning point that kind of slowed down the game. It slowed down the game for me.
Yeah, it did, and I do want to kind of highlight Nisqy's play so far, because actually over 3 games he has surprised me a lot. He looks a lot more like that quarterfinal Nisqy versus Perkz than he did in most of the split, and I felt it in his play. He seemed to be playing so much more confident, playing forward in that lane, up versus Jiizuké.
Definitely, and I think looking at his play in this game specifically, he was holding his own. You know, he was very far ahead in CS. He was looking like a guy that was gonna take over the game in the team fights. But then we had one big team fight where it all swung into favor of Vitality, and then he couldn't really showcase it.
He couldn't, unfortunately. Let's take a look. The Italian Stallion, once again, brought to you by Acer Predator. They have to start taking this Taliyah away from him. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second, because he can do this.
So basically, the interesting part about that whole setup was that Splyce obviously wanted to go for the vision, and Sion camped in the river and allowed his whole team to follow up.
Sorry, I was just
And we just see the aggression from Vitality. Not only Jiizuké going in, we saw Cabochard getting a 3-man ulti, and I think in this specific moment of the game, it's so crucial for Vitality to actually get a winning fight because they're slowly getting outscaled by the Azir. So it was kind of like a breaking point in the game, because if they didn't find this fight, maybe 5 or 10 more minutes, then Splyce would actually be able to take the game.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you guys, actually. When you come to a mid-game that is even and Splyce has a slightly more scaling composition, I think you guys would give it to Splyce 100% of the time, the game, which is why, to me, this turnaround was so impressive, amazing.
So for me, it seems to be that on both sides, basically, there's almost a reluctance to be patient. I think that's basically killing both teams in different stages of the game. For example, for Splyce, I think they understood, obviously, that they had the scaling component, but they almost felt too pressured to face check that Nashor. And that in itself just seems to be almost like nerves coming in on stage, where you make plays, you force plays that you're not supposed to, and it costs you dearly. Splyce, if they can somehow get the nerves together and understand that, hey, we have to maybe even break up this Olaf Taliyah combo, we cannot allow it again, we cannot allow Vitality to play more for comfort, then they can claw their ways back into the series. But if that doesn't happen,
we'll see, and that's also the impression I get if we look at the 3 games. Vitality just look pretty comfortable in that position due to the drafts that they give themselves, as in Game 3 and in Game 1, but also in their play. So now we have to talk about those bans and about those options possible for Splyce. As the caster said already, in their first phase, they have to ban out Ryze, Swain, and Caitlyn, but that Taliyah is always left up in the first rotation. Can you give any of those up?
I mean, for me, the game has been a lot about the bottom side of the map, and I think in both victories for Vitality, they had the winning matchup in the bottom side that they could push mid and then rotate and then kind of snowball the game from this. So either you break up the Olaf Taliyah combo that creates a lot of pressure in the early game, or you kind of just look to get the better bot lane matchup that can help kind of shut down the mid rotations.
Is there a ban you would drop?
I think if you want to really gamble, I think dropping the Swain ban is not even that bad, because we've seen it in Korea, especially, for example, where you're actually able to play towards the Swain if you have a pushing mid lane. For example, the Azir actually works well against Swain. They've shown the ability to play it. But if I was going to be a bit more safe, I'd say the Caitlyn ban, because I don't think that Caitlyn in itself is such an issue if you're able to play around the bot side of the map and do the same thing in Game 2, but don't screw up later.
But if you give up the Caitlyn, you need to have a pick into it, like Ashe or Jhin or something like this that can do more in the early game, because else I think they'll just get rolled over. Another thing I could see is that they leave up the Ryze maybe. They have shown very good play on Castro, and I think Cassiopeia as a champion should be fine into Ryze, and I think that will kind of just stabilize the mid lane.
Now, we're talking very much from the perspective of what can Splyce do, especially because Vitality is on match point, but is it really that dire? Because in the end, it came down to one fight in the mid game, the last game. So I don't think they should lose too much confidence per se.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's kind of hard, because you only really have one more shot, you know? So even though the game from the outside actually looked completely fine until that specific fight in the river around Baron. So it's a lot on them, you know, like how are they feeling about it? Do they want to change it up completely? Personally, I think you have to challenge Vitality in the early game.
So for me, yeah, it looked fine, but it didn't feel fine, as you already said. It didn't feel like they were ever in control of the game, where they could actually say, hey, we have the scaling advantage now, we know what we have to do, because Vitality was always in the game, and if they didn't throw in the top side of the map, I think this game would have ended a lot sooner. So for me, I think Vitality just stick to their guns, whereas on the other side, Splyce really has to break something up.
And it's not like Vitality is playing perfect, or they're doing plenty of mistakes that you can capitalize on. So I think I definitely agree, like, have more playmaking potential in the early game so you can punish them for doing the mistakes.
Well, Splyce will have to do something because Vitality is on match point. One more game standing between them and third place in the Spring Split. Meet us back here for match point after the break.
for the side of Vitality. How will Splyce combat it this time? We're going to find out as we move into Game 3. Both teams at 1-1, both looking to move up to match point in this best of 5. Gonna get hooked, Unraveled Earth knocks him right back over the wall, tries to flash to safety, also trying to take himself out. Is he gonna go down? Ignite is ticking. First blood!
Wow, nice.
Good job.
Nice to push him away. Nisqy gonna make it up to safety. Good patience comes in, but Jactroll with the flash, it does connect! What a madman in the mid lane!
What the fuck, Jactroll? Or no flash? I got them. Look. Nice, Carajo!
They're gonna take us to match point as they crush Splyce in these later fights.
Two very one-sided games into this beautiful back and forth, but it's Vitality who reigns supreme in Game 3.